It's him, Mama. The man who saved me.
Please, let us thank you.
You're home now, both of you.
The first time I saw her, she was digging through my trash. I just moved to the colonial settlement on Veridian 7, a frontier world where humans were still figuring out how to coexist with the native species. My small house sat on the edge of the settlement, where the carefully maintained human district bled into the wilderness that the locals called home. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old by human standards. Her blue skin was pale and dusty, stretched too tight over delicate bones. The native Veridians were tall and graceful, but this little one looked fragile, breakable. Her large amber eyes darted nervously as her small hands picked through the food scraps I'd thrown away that morning. I stepped out onto the porch, and she froze like a startled deer. We stared at each other for a long moment. Her whole body trembled, ready to bolt, but hunger kept her rooted in place. In her grip was half a protein bar I'd discarded, the wrapper clutched like treasure. "Hey," I said softly, keeping my voice low and gentle. "You don't have to eat from the trash." She didn't move, didn't speak. Her species hadn't been part of the initial contact agreements, and I wasn't sure she even understood standard. But hunger is universal, and I recognized it in those two wide eyes. I went back inside, moving slowly so I wouldn't spook her. When I returned with a plate of actual food, fresh bread, some dried fruit, a piece of the roasted cabbage I'd made for dinner, she was still there, watching me with a mixture of hope and terror. I set the plate on the ground halfway between us and backed away to the porch steps. Then I sat down and waited. It took 5 minutes before she crept forward. Her movements were jerky, uncertain, like she expected me to snatch the food away at any moment. When she finally reached the plate, she grabbed it and ran, disappearing into the tree line, so fast I barely saw her go. I didn't expect to see her again, but she came back the next evening. This time, she didn't run through the trash. She just stood at the edge of my property, watching the house with those enormous eyes. While I brought out food, she waited for me to retreat before approaching. She ate everything, carefully, methodically, like someone who knew starvation intimately. This became our routine. Every evening at sunset, she would appear. I would bring food. She would wait, eat, and vanish into the forest. On the 5th day, she stayed long enough to whisper 2 words in broken standard, "Thank you." On the 8th day, she told me her name was Lyra. By the 2nd week, she would sit on the edge of the porch while she ate, still skittish but less afraid. I learned that her village had been displaced by corporate mining operations. Her mother was sick. Her father was gone. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. They were living rough in the forest, surviving on whatever they could forage. I gave her extra food to take with her. She accepted it with a solemnity that broke my heart. Then for 3 days, she didn't come. I tried not to worry, tried to tell myself she'd found another food source or moved on. But on the 4th day, as the sun was setting and I'd almost given up hope, I heard footsteps on the porch. 2 sets of footsteps. Lyra stood at my door, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was a woman, tall and thin like all Veridians, but bent with exhaustion and illness. Her blue skin had a grayish tinge, and she leaned heavily on a makeshift crutch. But her eyes, the same amber as Lyra's, were fierce and proud. "My mother," Lyra said simply. "Zephyr." The woman said something in their language, her voice rough and halting. Lyra translated. She says, "Thank you for feeding me." She says she has nothing to offer in return, but she wanted you to know that my life is precious, that I matter, that I am worth the food you gave. My throat tightened. I know she matters. Anyone can see that. Zephyr spoke again, longer this time, and Lyra's voice grew softer as she translated. She's asking if there's work. Anything. She can clean, or. The woman swayed slightly, and I was moving before I made a conscious decision. I caught her arm, supported her weight. Up close, I could feel the fever radiating from her skin. Inside, I said firmly, "Both of you. Now, I'll spare you the details of that first night. The medical scan that showed the infection in Zephyr's leg, the antibiotics from my emergency kit, the way Lyra curled up in a corner and cried silently while I treated her mother, the way neither of them could quite believe it when I offered them the spare room. Just until you're better," I told Zephyr through Lyra's translation. "Then we'll figure out what's next." But as days turned into weeks, what's next became clear. Zephyr's leg healed slowly, but her health improved dramatically with regular food and medical care. Lyra started smiling, started laughing, started acting like the child she should have been all along. They taught me words in their language. I taught them more standard. We figured out how to share a kitchen, a bathroom, a life. When Zephyr was finally strong enough to work, she didn't ask to leave. She asked if she could help with my garden instead. Lyra asked if she could start attending the settlement school. The settlement administrator raised his eyebrows when I filed the paperwork to formally sponsor them as residents. "You know, they're not citizens," he warned. "This makes you legally responsible for them." "Good," I said. Now, 6 months later, I watched Lyra chase butterflies in the garden while Zephyr harvests vegetables, and I can't imagine my life any other way. The house that felt too empty when I moved in is full of language lessons and laughter, of shared meals and quiet evenings. The other day, another Veridian child appeared at the edge of the settlement, thin and frightened. Lyra saw them first. "Can we help?" she asked me, her standard nearly fluent now. I looked at Zephyr, who met my eyes and nodded. There's understanding there, and gratitude, and something that looked like hope. "Yeah," I said, "we can help, because that's what humanity does best, I think. Not conquering or claiming or taking, but seeing someone who needs help and choosing to give it. Building families not from blood, but from choice and kindness. And maybe that's the real reason we're out here among the stars. Not to show other species what we can take from them, but to show them what we're willing to share." The Veridian child at the forest edge took a tentative step forward. I went inside to get another plate.